Edition of the Patriots Beat podcast here on the CLNS Media Podcast Network and on Patriots Press Pass. I'm Evan Lazar, joined as always by Alex Barth. We are 9 days away from the NFL draft as we sit here on Tuesday evening. A week from Thursday is the first round. Obviously, the rest of the draft will then follow over the course of the weekend. So we're getting closer by the minute here, getting closer by the day. We're almost there. If you haven't done your homework on the draft, well, now you're cramming. That's the way I look at it. So Alex and I
the hay's in the barn. What do they like to say? The hay's in the barn.
Mac Jones is saying all last year on Fridays when we talked to him, the hay is in the barn, so to speak. I wouldn't say all the hay's in the barn for me. I think there's still a few guys that I'm trying to kick the tires on. We still got till next Thursday night, technically, to get all of our T's crossed and our I's dotted. So we still got some time, but we're getting there.
Yeah, my plan is to have the hay in the barn by next Wednesday, honestly. I did this last year. It's actually very relaxing. I took the day before. I didn't take it off, but I kind of just chilled the day before the draft, and it was nice. So we'll have a show that Thursday morning. That'll probably be our final mock draft. But yeah, we are getting there right now. Do you want to let people know what we're doing on this show, since it's going to be very interactive?
Yes, very interactive show planned tonight. We're excited to do this one. We are going to take some questions. That's why we titled the show a Q&A. Our goal is to do rapid fire prospects. I see a couple of questions that I do want to get to off the top that are a little bit more big picture, and then we'll really get into it and set this up. We want to go rapid fire. You give us a name, we give you a take. That's our goal here tonight. And
I think we've got a couple of those already here, more or less.
Yes, we do. So I'm excited about it, but we're really going to try to hone in on this rapid fire structure. We've tried to do this before, and as we tend to do on Patriots Beat, we get a little bit off the rails at times and a little bit distracted from the end game here. So that's the goal. Is you give us a name, we give you a take on the draft prospect, and we're going to do that here shortly. We're also going to grade some mock drafts. I thank all of you that have sent in mock drafts so far to the Patriots CLNS account. We got a bunch of them. Alex, I was joking with you about this before we started recording. A lot of these mock drafts that I see have a lot of the players that you and I have been talking up over the last couple of months in the NFL draft, which we appreciate you all watching, but a lot of them are a little bit redundant. I will warn some people that they have a lot of the same players. As a result, we've been talking about this for a while. I think at this point, a lot of the players are kind of etched in people's brains that they like, and that's the guys that people tend to target in these mock drafts. So we have the Q&As, we have the live mock draft. That's the goal here tonight. And let's start, though. Where do you want to start? You want to start with the mocks, or you want to start with the Q&A?
Let's just get into the prospects. There's some names here, even some names, guys, we haven't really talked about a ton that we could get into. So I don't know if I can pull these up. I saw we got Trent McDuffie. We've got Jack Jones, Leo Chenal. I'm counting, if they just say the name in the question, we don't necessarily have to answer the exact question, but if you go back down to the beginning, we've got a bunch. So let's try to keep this to like 30 to 45 seconds each a player. Overall thought on the player.
Okay, here we go. Let's start here with the first round prospect. Let's start with Trent McDuffie, who I think is a name that has come up a little bit more recently. Trying to figure out where exactly he's going to fall on the board has been a struggle. I know draft media, guys like Dane Brugler, Mel Kiper, really, really high on Trent McDuffie. There's certainly a lot of buzz with him around the league, but finding exactly where he's going to slot into this draft in the first round has been a little bit of an up and down. You look at his kind of chart there, it's kind of like this, right? Of where exactly he's going to go in the first round. I think the biggest reason being is that the tape tells you that he's probably a top 15, top 20 prospect in this draft. But then he goes to the combine, measures in a little bit small, under 6 feet tall, shorter arm length. Those are the types of things that, as we get into the draft process a little bit, tend to have prospects drop down the board slightly. Now, it feels like 15 to 25 range is probably going to ultimately be his sweet spot, and definitely in play at 21 for the Patriots. What's your Trent McDuffie take?
45 seconds there, Evan. Here's how you do this. McDuffie's interesting. I think between the 3 first-round guys, like within the Patriots range, right? Booth, Elam, McDuffie. He's the biggest high risk, high reward. A lot of it's going to come down to how he's used. And I think if the Patriots want that, man-to-man press outside corner, they're probably better off going with Booth or Elam. If they're going to embrace this positionless secondary, they want a guy who can play on the outside, in the slot, play some safety depending on the matchup. McDuffie is probably the best option of the three. So it depends what you're looking at defensively, I think changes the evaluation of McDuffie. That's how you do a rapid fire prospect.
Yeah, that's a really good take, because I think the biggest thing that I'm looking at when I'm trying to put my final mock draft together for the Patriots here over the next couple of weeks, are they more looking at this from a long-term prism, or are they more looking at this, we need to draft somebody in the first round that's going to fill a hole and play instantly right away as a rookie? Because Trent McDuffie strikes me as the type of guy that might be more in the category of a Jonathan Jones replacement rather than a JC Jackson replacement, right? And they obviously have Jonathan Jones on the roster right now. So yes, down in Miami, you do have to cover two guys that Jonathan Jones would definitely cover, in Tyreek Hill and Jalen Waddle, but not every team has two guys that run in the 4-2s. So you don't necessarily need that in every single matchup. Drafting a corner in the first round for one team that you're going to play twice a year is, you got 14 other games, right? 15 other games a year that you got to worry about. So that's my take on McDuffie, is what are they looking at, long-term or short-term with that pick?
The other thing about this being rapid fires, you give your take, I give my take next prospect. You, me, next prospect.
Okay. All right.
You like my take, though. I do appreciate that. Let's see if we can pick this up a little bit here.
Okay. Nakobe Dean. We've talked about Nakobe Dean a little bit, but I think that both of us are weary of projecting a 226-pound linebacker to Bill Belichick. It's just not his usual MO. But if they're going to change the way that they play defensively, it's possible that they could go in this direction. I don't think so, though, and I'm going to tell you why in a second. Go ahead with your timer.
Yeah, I know you're spot on there. I think it ultimately comes down to the defensive philosophy. If they can't draft him and play him like Donta Hightower and send him downhill all the time to stop the run. If they're going to change this up, though, and the secondary is going to the linebackers are going to get involved in coverage, they want guys to really flow sideline to sideline. If they're going to do the new age defense, Nakobe Dean is as new agey as you're going to get. It's just a matter of, is that what they want the defense to be?
Yeah, so I think the biggest thing is that I wanted to get to with this. We talked to Matt Groh. Oh, stop it. We talked to Matt Groh.
It's a challenge.
We talked to Matt Groh last week, and I asked him about speed on defense, and he went into an answer saying that they definitely want to get faster. But one of the things that he pointed out was that they could get faster by potentially playing guys at different spots than what they lined up in college, like playing safeties at linebacker. So when I go back with these 226-pound linebackers, I consistently find myself saying, well, would the Patriots just rather play Kyle Duggar in that spot versus playing Nakobe Dean there? And where is that line for New England of, this is worth it to us to draft a linebacker that's basically the same size as Kyle Duggar versus just taking Jabril Peppers and putting him out there in the box instead of drafting Nakobe Dean in the first round? That, if they're going to get faster on defense, it might not be just by drafting faster linebackers, is my point, right? It might be by playing a little bit different personnel than what we've seen in the past, like a 3-safety package or maybe even a 4-safety package. Okay.
Yep. Next prospect.
Jack Jones. The Patriots have now met with Jack Jones, Alex, twice. They had a top 30 visit with him. And according to a report today, they also met with him locally at his school. Was it Arizona, right? Yeah. So Jack Jones, what do you think of him? Somebody that I don't think that a lot of people know a lot about.
Yeah, so I think he's an interesting prospect, multi-year starter, team captain. There's some guys in the draft that they're going to come in as depth players like right away, and that's what they're going to be in their career. And you don't necessarily use a first-round pick on those guys, but you look at where the Patriots are at the cornerback position. They don't just need top-end talent; they need depth. And you can draft Jack Jones, and he can probably be a 25 to 30% usage rate guy, which, again, that's what they need. So I don't know that he solves all your cornerback problems. He's a guy I look at where it's like, all right, if you're going to double down on corner in the draft, he's an excellent second corner. But I like him on day 3. I don't think he solves all the problems. I like him on day 3. I think he comes in and contributes right away.
Yeah, he's a special teams guy to me right away. I think that any guy that's going to get drafted day 3, especially where Jack Jones is projected right now, assuming that he's like a 6th round pick for the Patriots, 5th round pick, going to have to make the team in the kicking game. They have lost some guys in recent years, especially this offseason, Brandon King, Brandon Bolden, that are big time special teams contributors. So do I look at him and say, oh, he's going to play a ton on defense in his future? I think that remains to be seen. But certainly a guy that could take a route of special teams first and then maybe project into a cornerback spot down the road.
Yep.
How's that? How's that?
That's better. We're getting there. That was like a minute, a little over a minute. We're getting there, though.
Okay. Britton Covey. I think a lot of people have said Slade Bolden, right? Everybody, has kind of made the jokes about Slade Bolden, connected Slade Bolden. Britton Covey is maybe a little bit lesser known Slade Bolden, I guess is the best way to put it.
West Coast Slade Bolden.
Yeah.
Slade Bolden after dark. Yeah. So I don't think he's as good of a receiver as Bolden is. You're not bringing him in for that, and he should be a UDFA. I wouldn't draft him. He's an excellent kick and punt returner. He's one of the best in college football this year. He has been the last few years. I believe he's Mormon. He did a mission, so he's going to be a little bit older. That's going to limit his upside maybe as a receiver. If they, we've talked about them drafting a lot of guys, Marcus Jones, Bo Melton, Wan'Dale Robinson, who can return kicks. I think they're going to find their kick returner elsewhere in the draft, somebody who contributes in another way. If they don't, Covey's an easy fit. And I think, even if they do, you bring him in as maybe another option. So if you bring in Slade Bolden, you really bring him in to play special teams. I think it's the same with Britton Covey, but he's just a little bit faster. He's a little more explosive. I actually think he's a better returner. If we're between the two, there's something to be said for the Bolden Mac Jones relationship, but I think I'd rather have Covey.
Yeah, if you're going to make Julian Edelman, Wes Welker, Danny Amendola type of comparisons, I would say that Covey moves a little bit more like those guys than Slade Bolden in terms of his explosiveness, his short area agility. He pops off the tape a little bit more than somebody like Slade Bolden in his movement skills. So I actually lean a little bit more towards Britton Covey as well as my guy in that 7th round UDFA type of mold of who's the next Edelman. If it's going to be anybody from this draft, I think it might more be Britton Covey than it will be Slade Bolden.
Yep. There you go.
Okay.
Right, now we're hitting a rhythm.
So this is about trading up. We can talk about it in the prism of trading up, but also just Derek Stingley in general. If he does have a fall on draft night, as some draft analysts have theorized he might fall into the early teens or something like that, do you feel like he's good enough as a prospect to go up and get him?
Yeah. I mean, I've said this, Evan. I think he's the best corner in the draft. I do. The Sauce Gardner stuff, I get it, but I still think Stingley, the ceiling's higher. I think the reason people were hesitant on him was kind of bull crap. Oh, he didn't do the combine. Boo. Like a lot of guys, Nakobe Dean didn't do the combine. A lot of guys didn't do the combine. None of the top tackles did the combine. We're still high on them. He has some injury history. I get that. The upside is so elite. Like so elite. I would trade up to 10. Now the Jets aren't going to give him to you. And I don't think he gets to 10. He shouldn't get to 10. I'm trying to remember off the top of my head who's at 11, but it's another trade the Patriots can't really make. 12, Minnesota. I can see that. Minnesota may take a long-term look, want to add a future pick, try to figure out what's next behind Kirk Cousins, get that future draft capital. It's going to be expensive. It's going to be really expensive. If you can move up to 12 and get Stingley, I think it would be worth it.
Yeah, I think it might be worth it too. And the big thing I see with Stingley, and this happens at times in the draft, maybe not as pronounced or as publicly as something like Stingley has, but where guys look, he's been the best corner in college football since his freshman year in 2019. And he's just been kind of wasting away at LSU, playing for nothing, right? Playing on a team that's winning nothing. And he's just been waiting to get to the NFL. And my guess is I'm betting on the talent. And I'm saying that when we get Derek Stingley into a pro program and he's ready to go, now he's playing with the elite of the elite, that switch is just going to flip right back on, right? And he's going to be the guy that we saw in 2019. It's really difficult. I think the one other examples off the top of my head, like Jadeveon Clowney was kind of like that, where he had the big junior year. also Leonard Fournette was a little bit like that, right? I think those two guys had the big sophomore years, and then they had to wait until they were juniors to come out.
If people want to remember, by the way, it was Washington 11. They need a corner. So I doubt they're trading back. Like, basically, for him to get to 12, Kyle Hamilton needs to get to 11, and Washington decides they want Hamilton over Stingley. Right. And even then, you're talking about probably 2 quarterbacks going in the top 10. Yeah. People need to remember with Stingley, there were that 2019 LSU team, the national championship team. That team had some talent. That team had Burrow. That team had Chase. That team had Justin Jefferson. Yeah. Stingley was a true freshman, so he wasn't even close to coming out. People said Stingley was the best pro prospect on that team at the time. And maybe it's kind of gotten lost in translation the last couple of years. But Evan, when he is on, he is on.
He's the best corner in the draft. I have him as cornerback 1. I think people that don't have him as quarterback 1 are overthinking it. I would absolutely love, and I bet you teams that are thinking about drafting Derek Stingley are getting the practice tape from LSU of him going up against Jamar Chase and Justin Jefferson and saying, and Terrence Marshall was there too, right? At LSU also when he was there.
Yeah. And saying, they had some other good defensive players. Delpit. Grant Delpit was there.
Yeah, Grant Delpit in the secondary. I think a lot of teams are maybe getting their hands on some of that practice tape and watching him go toe-to-toe with Jamar Chase and seeing the real Derek Stingley in practice. So I think that that's a guy that I would absolutely trade up for. Okay. 2 guys here, twofer. Starting with James Cook at running back. I watched him this past week, did a full report on him. Fantastic player. I mean, really, really fun prospect. There are just not a lot of guys. And when you look at him and you say, oh, he's going to go third round, third round, the ability in that Michigan game in the college football semifinal to go under center, run split zone from under center, break off an explosive run. Then a couple plays later, they flex him out wide, and he's out wide on the flanker, out on the boundary, and he's running a double move against the safety, and he's beating him over the top. And then on the next play, he's taking another hand. Like that versatility, I can't believe that versatility makes it out of the second round. It just doesn't feel like that kind of offensive weapon should last long. I know he's not the most physical guy. He goes down on first contact a lot, but his versatility, his explosiveness, he's a really interesting and fun player, especially in today's NFL.
Yeah, this year's running back class is interesting because there's no, even borderline first round back, right? Like who was it last year? Was or 2 years ago was Clyde Edwards-Helaire. Right. Who was the borderline first round back last year? I don't know why I can't. Anyway, next year it'll be Bijan Robinson, Najee Harris, right? Najee Harris. We all knew was going to go in first round. So that guy doesn't exist in this class, but there's a bunch of potential second round backs. Breece Hall, Kenneth Walker.
There's going to be a run on day 2 of running backs at some point. Yeah.
So Cook's just a step below those guys. He's a little smaller. He's a little less experienced, but the best do it all back in the draft. And the Patriots are going to capitalize on a guy like that. I don't think Patriots fans would love where you would have to take him to get him here. I think 54 is too early, but you probably have to move up from 85. It might cost you a future top 100 pick to make that move. But he's going to be a really good player if he comes here. He's going to be a really good player. He'd be an excellent fit in their system. He's the kind of guy that Mac Jones is going to have a lot of success with. I think he could seamlessly take over the reins from James White while also handling some early down duties. So I don't know how realistic he is in terms of how they're going to get him. But if they can figure out a way to get him, it's probably going to be a great pick.
Yeah, so not as his contact balance and his ability to one cut and really go is not as good as his big brother, right? Dalvin's his big brother. Right. He doesn't quite have that power between the tackles in his frame, but he has he has way more versatility, I would say, than Dalvin. Dalvin's great coming out of the backfield on screen passes, swings into the flat, things like that, but he's not a complete receiver like his younger brother is. James Cook is an do-it-all weapon, as you said. All right, Kyle Phillips, 4th round's a little bit rich for me with Kyle Phillips. I didn't quite see it. Like, I think when I watched him on tape, that 40 time, that mid 4.5s did not surprise me one bit. Like, I think that's exactly who he is on film. He runs some good routes. He does have some quickness at the top of the route, but I think all of us are really stressing a little bit more speed. It's not that we need guys that all run in the 4.2s, right? They don't have to draft Taekwon Thornton to make me happy, but they need to draft somebody that's got a little bit more get up and go when he comes off the line of scrimmage.
I think specifically it's somebody who can help after the catch, whether it's an X receiver, whether it's slot receiver, somebody who's going to be somewhat of a yak threat Kyle Phillips isn't that guy. He's going to get open 5-8 yards down the field, catch the ball, fall down. If that's what you want, I honestly don't think he's that different than Slade Bolden. Like, he's a little more polished, but I don't know that I'm in a rush to draft Kyle Phillips. Like, again,
no,
I can draft him, or I can go get Bolden or Covey as a UDFA. I think you're ultimately going to end up with the same player. So I see I know a lot of Patriots fans are hype on Kyle Phillips. I don't see it. Not my guy.
Yeah, me neither. All right, Taekwon Thornton. This is an interesting one because I don't know what I just did to it. See, now I'm clicking everywhere. Okay, Taekwon Thornton's an interesting one. There we go. I think really quickly. Miles Boykin just got cut by the Baltimore Ravens. Got picked up today by the Pittsburgh Steelers. He was another one of those guys that was absolutely phenomenal at the combine, right? But the production on the tape wasn't really there. I would say Taekwon Thornton, to me, don't get lost in the athletic testing. Athletic testing, to me, is to confirm your priors, right? You go into the combine. If you see a fast guy on tape, you want to see a fast guy in the 40. Taekwon Thornton, to me, is a guy that doesn't play to 4.26, right? He runs a 4.26, but when you turn on the film, he's not running to that speed. Whereas a guy like Christian Watson in this draft runs a little bit slower on the clock, but when you put on North Dakota State film, he plays to that speed, right? He is a game changer with the speed. I'm all set on Taekwon Thornton. I think that he is strictly a combine athlete. I don't think he's a football player. Go ahead.
So I think there's some interesting things with him. He's a bigger guy. He's 6'2", 6'3". I think outside of the athleticism at the combine, a trait he has I really like, especially for a guy his size, is he's got really good body control. When he's catching the ball along the sideline in the end zone, like he can get that, he can toe tap, right? He can kind of contort himself to get around the corner. A lot of fast guys can't do that simply because they've never really had to learn that skill. They're just running past everybody. That being said, the rest of his game is pretty raw, right? He started going over the middle last year. That helped him. That built some production, but that element of his game is still growing. If this was a Pittsburgh Steelers podcast, I would be pounding the table for Taekwon Thornton because I think he's the guy that has a ton of uncoachables and he just needs to learn the technique. Now, this isn't the Steelers podcast. It's Patriots, right? Because we know what the Steelers do with wide receivers. Any receiver they touch turns to gold. Not as much the case in New England. They don't, necessarily have a dedicated wide receivers coach. So I like Thornton, the player. I think if he goes to the right team, he could potentially be like a contributing number 3, maybe even a low-level number 2 receiver. I just don't think New England is the team where that happens.
Yeah, I think his upside's Marquez Valdez-Scantling. I really do. I think that's
actually a good point.
Yeah, I think that's sort of his upside. But the Patriots in this offense, do they really need that guy? And how do they develop that guy and get him?
Are they going to get him there?
Right. It just, I don't know. It's too great for me. All right. Speaking of great, good segue. Danny Gray. I love Danny Gray. I think I've talked about him a little bit. I wish we talked about him more, though, so we can talk about him now. Danny Gray from SMU, really, really fun prospect. Also a low 4.3s guy, can absolutely fly. What do you think of him for the Patriots? He seems to me like the perfect pivot for New England, where everybody's talking about Mechie and Moore and all these other big name receivers, and the Patriots give you Danny Gray in the 4th round. That just all feels so New England and feels so Bill Belichick.
Yeah, I mean, the thing I like about him, again, he's going to give you something after the catch. I mean, that's his whole game. That's where his whole game begins. I don't know that he's a guy who's necessarily going to win in the route as much as he is after the catch. So I still like Mechie better. There's still guys I have ranked ahead of him. But like you said, here's this guy, smaller school. He's kind of gotten buried because there's a ton of prospects in the class that fit this mold, and they would go and grab him. So, yeah, I mean, I wouldn't be mad if they take him. I think there's other players like him that I'd rather have, but you can't necessarily grab everybody. And I think if they walk away with Danny Gray as their wide receiver addition, it's hardly a worst case scenario.
Yeah, you go turn on that tape against TCU, and he's just taking slants 60 yards to the house against a secondary that's got some NFL players. He does have some flashes of route running, but that explosiveness, when he gets the ball in his hands, he's got another gear in the open field that he finds really, really quickly. Really smooth player. I know last show, I think last mock draft, we drafted Velus Jones, who's another guy that I'm really high on. I think Danny Gray is a more polished version of Velus Jones, similar size, speed, comp, but I think a little bit more polished with his route running. I'd be really excited if they got their hands on Danny Gray, if that ends up being who they come away with. Michael Clemens got some off-field stuff. I don't want to go into that kind of thing,
Okay,
but
we're the off-field guys.
Yeah, he's got some. Go Google his name. All right. Akayleb Evans, a little bit smaller, kind of like a slot corner. We always love Zion McCollum, Marcus Jones on this program, but what do you think about Evans?
I like Evans. I really do. I think he's the perfect. I've talked about this a little bit with different players. It's so jarring to just go from their old school defensive philosophy to if they're going to go with the zone hybrid kind of look. I think bridges that gap where he's a press man corner, or he's a corner, but he can go press zone. He's a bigger 6'2". So I think he kind of helps them stick with some of those identifying characteristics in a new age defense. He gets hurt a lot. I'm worried about that. I don't know that he solves all your issues. I don't know that he'd be the only corner I would take, but if he can stay, like, he's a projected 4th round pick right now with injury issues. He's probably a day 2 talent. It's that kind of value thing, right? So I wouldn't make him the only corner again, but he's a player I think it would make sense to add.
So this is interesting because we mocked Martin Emerson to the Patriots. We've talked about Kyer Elam. We've talked about Andrew Booth Jr. If they kind of missed that first wave in the top 100 of corners, I really like Evans. I really like Alontae Taylor from Tennessee as outside guys, right? Longer guys that can play on the outside. Evans certainly has that profile, length, good press man ability. I did see some hip tightness and what I would call leggy transitions, where he's kind of got to take some extra steps to flip his hips and move in different directions. Whereas if you have him cover verticals, I think he could be pretty solid. So he's one of those guys that would definitely be matchup specific, right? You're going to have to put him on the right type of receiver. You don't want to put him on somebody too quick. That's going to give him some problems. But if they're just looking for a big outside guy that can press, I think Evans is a good one to put in that 3rd or 4th round category, like you said. Okay. We know they like to go Sooners. We know that they like to go Sooners edge defenders in particular. Nik Bonitto is another one of those guys. I had him on my big board. He was in that first tier, that 41 through 50 range. Kind of a little bit sort of Josh Uche, Chase Winovich-esque, which might turn some people off when I say that because of how that hasn't worked out here. But he fits that kind of profile that if they still want to try that, right? If they still want to make that work, I think Bonitto, like 200, like 48 pounds, 245, something like that. Speed rusher extraordinaire. This guy doesn't have power. This is a pure speed, get to the football type of player.
Yeah, are you talking about Chase Winovich just in range of the draft? Like stylistically, I think he's a very different player.
Yeah,
right?
I think
Winovich wasn't a speed guy.
Yeah, I think he's a speed guy, speed rusher.
Not like Bonitto. No, Bonitto's like explosive. When I see Bonitto, I think more Ronnie Perkins. And I mean, obviously, they're both at Oklahoma. He's playing that same role. But yeah, if they're gonna, I don't know that adding the day 2 edge guy like they've done the last 3 years is the best way to go, because these guys need to play. You can't just take these guys and bench them for 3 years because it kills their development. If they do have to do it, I think Bonitto is a pretty good option. I'd rather some of the 3rd round guys, Josh Pascal, D'Angelo Malone. Somebody just said Jesse Luketa in the draft, who's probably more early day 3. I don't see that investment being that high, but if they're committed to day 2 edge, I mean, there's an argument that Nik Bonitto's, if Boy Mafe goes in the 1st round, that Nik Bonitto's the best day 2 edge guy on the board. So
yeah,
he's a good football player. At the end of the day, you want to add good football players. He's a good football player. I get hesitant adding players where you don't know when and where they're going to play. And I feel like that would be the issue here.
Yeah, I think that this, to me, smells a little bit too much like the Uche picks, like the Jennings pick, like the Winnow pick, like the Perkins pick, right? Like they've tried this so many times. How many more times are they going to take the high upside edge rusher on day 2? Like how many more times are we going to do this? I think that that's a big concern that I have with a guy like Bonitto. I like him though; he's on my board. I think
Good
he fits
player, good football player.
Yeah, I think he's fit what they've drafted in the past. I have some reservations about it being too much of more of the same. All right, Travis Jones. We talked about him a little bit, but he's been they've been spamming him in the chat, Alex. So let's give Travis Jones some love, and then we can do what you want to do.
So, well, no, somebody asked about if you can find a Charlie Kohler a couple times.
Okay.
Travis Jones. So if I do think that they're going to add a nose tackle, they need to add a nose tackle. They were 26 last year against the run. Like they need that big body in the middle. Do they want to max out on that pick? Because if they want, like Jordan Davis is his own thing. I'm not counting Jordan Davis here. Travis Jones, the best 2-down run stopping nose tackle in this draft. And he's going to go early in the second round. Right. I think he's really good like that. The question is, when you have needs at corner, guard, tackle, I would, if you want to get a luxury needs, wide receiver, linebacker, do you want to use that top 50-ish pick on a guy who's only going to be a 2-down player, where this class is so deep at nose tackle? Guys like Marquand, McCall, Noah Ellis within the Patriots system are probably going to give you something close to it. So I really like Travis Jones as a player. It's not them to add that kind of player that high in the draft. So I wouldn't get my hopes up for him. If he comes in, he's going to solve a problem. And I said this on a show before. At the end of the day, when you're evaluating draft picks, it mostly comes down to answering the question, what does this player add? What is he going to do that nobody else does? Travis Jones emphatically answers that question. He's going to give you a linchpin, big body, block-eating defender in the middle on early downs against the run. I just think there's other guys in the draft that can get a little later on that will do that. And this is a position where they've generally looked a little later on to fill needs.
This one's all about value to me. I love Travis Jones as a player, but like you just mentioned, is Travis Jones that much more dominant than Marquand McCall? Right? Is he that much more dominant than Noah Ellis? Is he that much more dominant than those types of guys? I'm blanking on the guy from Arkansas.
DJ Davidson would be another.
John Ridgway.
Yep.
Yeah, like those are the types of guys that you can get on day 3 as nose tackles. Travis Jones showed some, I guess, burst energy as a pass rusher at the Senior Bowl. So I think maybe he can bring a little bit more than that up to the table. And those guys are more just first down players. But how much do they value that? We'll see. Like, I don't necessarily know. I have a tough time with this IDL class in general of finding it. Obviously, we know Jordan Davis in the first round to be a great pick for them, but finding the sweet spot on day 2 for them to pick up another one of these guys is a little bit challenging with the way that their picks are drawn out, right? It's
especially if it's a nose tackle. Like if it's one of these hybrid tackle ends like Fidarian Mathis from Oklahoma, the Senior Bowl MVP. Perrion Winfrey, thank you. One of my favorite players in the draft. Can't remember his name. It's that time of year. Like if it's one of those guys, I think it's a little bit easier, right? It's the true nose in the second round is a little tough.
Yeah. Okay. So another one, I guess maybe if he falls to the Patriots, Jermaine Johnson from Florida State is getting some real late, like top 10 buzz, right? Like he's going to go pretty darn high in the draft. Out of all the players though, that they could get in the front 7 in the first round, if he does magically fall to them at 21, there are very few guys that check as many boxes for what Bill Belichick wants out of a position like Jermaine Johnson. Easily, to me, better than Hutchinson, better than Kayvon Thibodeau, better than Trayvon Walker. I think he's the best run defender out of this edge group, bar none. I don't think anybody's better at him processing, defeating blocks, posting up and holding up blocks. He is fantastic in that phase of the game and can also rush the passer. I think he's going to be a fringe top 10 guy, but I would absolutely love him if the Patriots could get his hands on him.
Yeah, I think he probably moved out of the equation when David Ojabo tore his Achilles.
Yeah.
Because he kind of, Ojabo was flirting with that top 10 range, right? Until he had that injury. And I think basically all the hype around, hey, here's this edge guy who's moving to the top 10, really well-rounded player, great athlete. Jermaine Johnson just kind of seamlessly filled that void when Ojabo went down, right? So if Ojabo's still on the board, then there's maybe have to push one of these guys 21, and that could be an interesting one. Do they take a potential top 10 talent? Are they willing to sit on him for a year? Maybe. I don't know. I don't think so, but it wouldn't be the weirdest thing they've ever done. But yeah, Johnson's a good player. He's not somebody I've studied a ton because I'm just not counting on him being there.
He's fantastic. I can't really think of another guy that's come out on the edge because all these edge guys, everybody just wants guys.
This edge class is super weird. Maybe I'm missing something. I think the consensus is just totally off.
Well, I think the big thing is for me is that, and rightfully so, I'm not saying that it's necessarily incorrect, but everybody is so caught up in getting after the quarterback that it's like the only thing that matters when you're scouting these edge guys, right?
Okay. Like, I don't mean relative to each other though. Like, why is first overall pick? I've had a lot of people tell me why other players won't be. You know, Kayvon Thibodeau gets hurt. Jordan Davis.
I think that's the reason why, right? It's because he's got the highest floor.
That's not the reason you make somebody a first over. But then you don't make him the first overall pick. And by the way, Evan Neal should be the first overall pick in this draft. I've said that a million times. But I would take Thibodeau over Hutchinson. I know he gets hurt, but I think the upside is significantly better. Travon Walker, I think he's probably on par with Hutchinson. I would take Jordan Davis over Aiden Hutchinson. I'm the Jordan Davis guy. I know I'm that guy, but I don't get it. I don't. He got bullied. He got bullied by Georgia. I don't know how that's not a massive red flag.
Yeah, Jamari Saylor did give him his lunch money a few times in that game. That's for sure. Okay. Another edge guy that I think is starting to maybe circle into that 21 range is George Karlaftis from Purdue. I think this is what's tough for me because I see some of the play strength and some of the power that the Patriots would like in that edge group, in that edge position. But to me, Karlaftis is best as a 4-3 end and not a stand-up outside linebacker. And I'm also just not sure he's the type of guy that needs to dent the pocket and needs to really come off the ball with speed to power. And they want to contain so much on that spot that I'm not sure that he converts best into their system in that sense, right? Because if he has to convert speed to power, and that's how he's not spin move. He's not like, let's throw cross chops and let's do all this fancy hand technique stuff, right? He's the Hulk playing football. Like that's who he is. If they're not going to let him just speed to power bull rush every single time he goes out there because they're worried about him, Josh Allen, getting out of the pocket and rolling out, I don't know if George Karlaftis is necessarily their guy.
Yeah, he reminds me of like those 2015 Denver Broncos teams, like the late Peyton teams. They beat the Patriots in a playoff game, right? Where it was really just you had a bunch of bullies up front, right? Obviously, you had Von Miller, you had Shane Ray, Derek Wolfe. I know I'm missing somebody. I can't think off the top of my head, but you said all those guys. It was basically a race to the quarterback. It was, I'm going to beat the crap out of the guy in front of me and whoever gets the quarterback first. That's not how the Patriots play defense. I don't, could they maybe turn him into that kind of guy? I think the raw skill set is there for him to kind of be like a Rob Ninkovich sort of player. I think that's also what the plan was with Chase Winovich was. He didn't play the game the way they wanted him to, but they liked the wrong skill set and they thought they'd work with him. And it just, for whatever reason, never connected. He never changed the way he played. I'd be worried about the same thing with Karlaftis, especially if you're going to take him in the first round.
Yeah, I'm with you on that as well. Okay. More positionless defense here in the secondary. We've talked a lot about Dax Hill. We haven't talked a ton about Jalen Pitre. If there's one guy out of this safety nickel group that has a better eye for the football or just nose for the football, it's Jalen Pitre. Like that guy's always around the ball. He's always on the fit in the run game. He's always around the football in the pass game. You see him on tape and he drops into zone coverage and he covers like 3 guys on 1 rep, right? Like he's sifting through the processing and the reads of the quarterback and taking away. I've heard a lot of Budda Baker comps. I think there is a little bit of Honey Badger in his game as well, but he's totally positionless. He's a nickel safety, right? He's a guy that's going to play over the slot. He's a guy that's going to play deep, but he's not going to play on the outside a ton. So similar to Dax Hill, I think in that category. What do you think about Jalen Pitre? If the Patriots that's full blown we're playing zone and we're going positionless, right? Like that's really going in that direction.
Yeah, to get kind of college football nerd out a little bit here, I like the idea of getting a safety from the Big 12. That doesn't mean I think the only good safeties are from the Big 12 or every Big 12 safety is good, but that conference, it's all very check down or chuck, right? You're either throwing it to the running back underneath or you're throwing the ball on a go route. And the NFL is kind of becoming more that way. I think the AFC East is now developing into a lot of that sort of football. So I think Pitre's been tested in a lot of ways. He's going to get tested in the NFL. I think that's good. Again, if they're going to go positionless, I love it. If I don't love him as a replacement for Devin McCourty, I don't love him as the idea is to, have him play corner. If they're going to if they want a guy that can, if they want a guy that, but that's not maximized, then take a slot corner, right?
Yeah.
Then take Marcus Jones. I just, unless you're going to move him all, I said this when they signed Jalen Mills, right? The way to maximize that signing was to move him all over the defense and not give him a position. I feel kind of the same about Jalen Pitre. Unless you're really going to use him as that chess piece, and they have 4 or 5 guys that can do that with at this point. Kyle Duggar, Adrian Phillips, Jabril Peppers would be another one. I just think that there's better, if you're going to put him in a role, there's probably a better player in the draft for that specific role. Jalen Pitre's value is that he's going to play a bunch of different roles.
Yeah, he's a ball hawk. That guy's always around the football. He's a fun player to watch. All right. We talked about Verone McKinley off the show a bunch. I don't know if we've done him on the show quite yet. Another guy that he plays a lot bigger than he listed at, right? He's
faster.
He's fast. He's a real missile in the middle of the field, can cover a lot of ground in a hurry. I mean, there's crazy center field reps of him just, matching guys all the way down the field, making diving pass breakups, things like that. Really fun player, maybe a little bit undersized from what they typically want in that deep center field role, but he can definitely play it. If they're looking safety, Verone McKinley is a good football player.
Yeah, Verone McKinley's a guy, I was super into him last year. I was already, I was mocking him last year, and then he ended up going back to school at Oregon. Yeah, he plays a lot bigger and a lot faster than he is because I think he's just got really good instincts. He can get himself in the spot. You mentioned the size on the back end, but he's a secure tackler. I'm surprised he's mocked as low as he is, especially in a relatively weak safety class. I think there's concern. He had a down year going back to school, but a lot of comps for him last year, right before he had the down year in 2021. He elects to go back and, he elects to stay after 2020. But when he was going to come into the draft last year, a lot of comps from Devin McCourty, and people have backed off of that. But, we saw the Patriots last year. Ramondre Stevenson had a better, sophomore year than junior year. Ronnie Perkins, better sophomore year than junior year. Trey Nixon, better or junior than senior, whatever it was. Like his 2 years ago tape was better than his tape leading into the draft. McKinley fits that. I think he's got tremendous upside. I think the one thing he's missing is he still struggles sometimes with some more complex concepts in front of him, reading them. I think a year working with Devin McCourty, Bill Belichick, the Patriots coaching staff would do wonders for his game. So if they can get him on day 3, which is where it sounds like he's going to go, that would be a great pick. I'd be really excited about that.
Yeah. So 5'10", 198. That's a big flag on him right now in terms of size, right?
Right. He plays bigger than that.
Yeah, but he plays bigger than that. I really like Verone McKinley as well. All right. This is turning into the safety show, but we might as well get some of these guys that we haven't talked about a whole lot out of the way. Nick Cross from Maryland. Really good tester. I think Matt Groh was at his pro day at Maryland, or somebody was at his pro day.
Yeah, they were there. Yeah.
I don't know if it was Matt Groh or somebody else, but somebody was at his pro day down there. When I watch him play, my concern with him is he's a little tight, right? He's a little bound tight in the hips. I don't think that he's got quite that pedal, turn, run trigger to the football that I like to see from a pure center fielder. I think he's ideally a free safety in a too high shell scheme or a too high heavy defense, and not that true Devin McCourty play in the middle of the field type of guy, but a really, really good athlete, really, really well-built guy, thick, heavy, burly build. He can really bring it too in terms of the hit stick. I just don't know if I can really trust him in pure center field roles. And Jahan Dotson spun him around like a top playing in slot at slot corner. So I think that he's more of like a too high safety to me, but he can play. Like, he'll be in the NFL for a while.
Yeah, tremendous athlete. I mean, that's what pops off. I think he's explosive. I think a lot of the issues you attributed to, I don't think they're physical issues. I think he's just his instincts aren't totally there. I think he's a little slow to react. So I kind of feel the same way about him I do about McKinley. You grab him on day 3. I think a year with this coaching staff, kind of get his recognition up, his football IQ up a little bit. I think he could be a player. So these like athletic back end safeties that just need to see more football. It's a position where the more football you've seen, the better you are. Somebody just said Kirby Joseph in the chat kind of fits in this as well.
I love Kirby Joseph.
Just get him in the building, let him learn from Devin for a year, and then try to put him back there. Like, I think a lot of these guys would benefit from that. So yeah, I like Cross. I like McKinley. I like Joseph. If they can get one of those guys on day 3, I think that'd be a sneaky good ad.
Okay. So speaking of Cross, the other Cross, Charles Cross. I can't find the question, of course, now.
We're doing Charles Cross, a top 10 pick. We're doing Charles Cross. Oh, how far would we trade up?
How far would we trade up? And I bring it up because there are some concerns that you hear about from scouts. The main one being that he's coming out of an air raid system. If you are a team that likes to run the football or even wants to be close to balanced in terms of run pass, he has very, very little pure run blocking tape. Like, he doesn't really have very much of that at all. Like, does he double team? Can he climb? Can he pull? Like, you just don't see any of those types of things on his tape because of the type of scheme that he was running in. High level pass protector though. And I would also point out that air raid guys are not getting docked as much nowadays as they maybe did 5 to 10 years ago, right? An air raid tackle 5 to 10 years ago might not go in the first round. Now it's a little bit different world. So Charles Cross, I think, still goes a little bit too high for the Patriots to trade up for him.
Yeah, they also want to run the ball. I think they'll like Penning. I think they'll like Raymond if they're set on taking a tackle in the first round. I maybe if Iquanu falls, which I don't think he will. I think his basement is 7 to me. But Cross that's not the guy they trade up for. Good player, not the kind of guy they trade up for.
Should we go to one more safety here?
We got, if it is who I think it is, then yes. Yeah.
Jaquan Brisker.
Love me some Jaquan Brisker.
Okay, so one of the last guys I took off of my big board, big reason I will openly admit was that he goes to Penn State, right? And I already had a couple Penn State guys on there, and they're just not a school that, not a team that drafts a lot of guys that go to Penn State. I know that sounds weird, but that they've only drafted one guy in the last 20 plus seasons out of Penn State.
Who was it?
Or offensive lineman. I can't.
Rich Orenberger, 2009, fourth round guard.
I knew it. There we go. Yeah. So not a big feeder school for the Patriots. One of those guys that I forget who does the list. I should know this. He was on the athletics freak list, right?
The freaks list. Yeah. Oh, yeah.
Yeah. He is an absolute athletic freak. He can play all over the secondary. He can lay the wood. He can range over the top. He can get near the football. Really fun player to watch, but he's got the Penn State thing. It's another safety. I mean, how many safeties could I possibly put on the board, right? I mean, you're not going to have too many.
Man, but if they're going to snap that Penn State thing, and there's some good Penn State players in this draft, right? I like Jahan Dotson, Brandon Smith, the linebacker's another one. I think they have a tackle too. If I could get one, everybody likes Drew Hartlaub. If they could get one Penn State player, it's Jaquan Brisker. He's a deep safety. I think he's a free safety at the next level. He's a deep safety, but he plays the position like a box safety. He is physical. He beats up receivers. He does not lose on jump balls. He's not afraid to dish out some punishment. They could have some fun with Jaquan Brisker. You know, Matt Patricia scheming that up. Gerard Mayo scheming that up. I think they could really, really do something with him. They might take him at 21. He's not making it to 54. Or maybe they trade up like they did for Balmer. He is, I think his basement is probably like 40. But he's been one of my favorite prospects in the draft since the beginning, Evan. I think I was talking to you about him in September. I love these. You know, it's funny. I'm raving about all these safeties. I think it's overall a down safety class, but you either love them or hate them. There's no safeties I'm on. There's one, Smoke Monday. Every other safety I either love or I'm out on. There's really no ass safeties in this draft, which is fun. It's a fun kind of class for that. The Patriots might need one, they might not. It's a lot of question marks. They're going to take 5 safeties.
Yeah. So we were debating about this a little bit earlier. Zion McCollum against Tariq Woolen,
Yeah.
right? Like this is
Oh
like
yeah.
which athletic cornerback do you want, right? Which like just traits based, raw, but just extremely high upside with the athletic ability do you want? You've loved Tariq Woolen for a while. What do you think about him now?
I think Tariq Woolen has the second highest upside of any player in this draft behind Jordan Davis.
Jesus. Oh, that's a take. We should cut that
Now
out.
look. The floor is significantly lower.
Yeah.
I mean, that is here. So here's why I say that, Evan. He's 6'4". He's got 35-inch arms. He ran a 4.2 640 and probably left something on the table. Like he plays faster than that. Supposedly, when he was working out, he ran a 4.22 when he was getting ready for the combine. 6'4", 4.2 time, views the game like a wide receiver. Let's say he hits his ceiling, and this is I'm talking absolute ceiling, not guaranteeing you'll be this player, but let's say he gets coached up and nails it technically and everything, right? There's no mismatch. There is no mismatch for that guy.
Well, he's not. He's a little stiff. He's a little stiff.
That's a technical thing. That's a technical thing. I'm saying,
but he's not going to go out there like we're not going to put him on a shifty slot receiver, right? I mean, he's an outside corner and he's going to play press. He's got
at his position, sure, yes, but I'm saying
like the problem I have with him is that you are taking a ball of clay.
He's incredibly raw.
In projection, there's nothing on tape that says that this guy is going to be a high-end cornerback in the NFL. Nothing.
It's how much you trust your coaching staff. That's what the pick is. How much do you trust your coaching staff? I'm like, I don't know if I want the Patriots to take him or not. I don't know that he'd be the only corner I'd take. But if you can get a guy like, one of these more sure guys a little later on, or if he falls a little bit and you maybe go a guy like Andrew Booth in the first and Tariq Woolen in the third, sure. I'm just saying, if he puts it together technically, there's nobody in the league he can't guard. It's a huge if.
I've heard this so many times about
nobody in the league he can't
corners the Patriots.
This is different. How many of those guys were 6'4", 4'2" converted wide receivers?
I hear you.
Don't sleep on the converted wide receiver thing too.
I don't sleep on it, but his footwork, everything about him is you are building it from the ground up.
Okay, but let me ask you this. Are any of his flaws uncoachable?
No, I don't think they're necessarily
That's the point.
So, but the problem, the reason why I lean Zion McCollum in this conversation, and this is the debate we were having with Zion versus Tariq Woolen, the reason why I lean Zion McCollum is because you turn on Zion McCollum, and I get it's at Sam Houston State, but you turn him on, he's got 13 career interceptions. He's got plays on tape, right? Football plays, not just him running fast in a straight line in Indianapolis at the combine. You watch him play football, and he's a good football player on top of being a good athlete. I think Tariq Woolen might have higher upside because of his raw tools, but Zion McCollum is already on the third floor, right? And
here's the thing.
That's the difference to me.
I'd rather have Zion McCollum for the reasons you just said. You need somebody who's going to come in right away and compete. If they still had Steph Gilmore and J.C. Jackson, but both of those guys were on one-year deals, then Tariq Woolen makes all the sense in the world because you have a year where he doesn't need to play, right? Obviously, McCollum is like, that's the thing with Woolen. That's why his upside is so high and he's still a second or third round pick because you're not even guaranteed getting an NFL player. Look, I think ultimately with his athleticism, even if he doesn't pan out at corner, he's probably going to be a decent safety. Like, I think he'd ultimately be a pretty good. So either way, but again, if you're looking for a corner to come in year one and play 75, 80% of the snaps on the outside, I like McCollum a lot better than I like Woolen in that scenario. If you think you have a great coaching staff, you got a year to develop a guy, I would rather have Tariq Woolen. So that's the split for me. I don't know that one is ahead of the other definitively. I think it's a matter of what are you looking for? What's your situation? All of that. So that all being said, though, I think Woolen's upside is tremendous.
I need to be able to put it on tape and say, here's Zion McCollum using his 4.3 speed. Here's Tariq Woolen using his 4.26, right? Like, here's plays on a football field. And I just can't stack enough together for Tariq Woolen to feel good about it.
Because he hasn't played enough.
I guess that's fair.
That's
this coaching staff
yeah.
I've lost trust in the development stage, right? Like I don't know. I just have lost trust in that aspect of their evaluation.
I would just say, and look, ultimately it's different guys, but between Bill and Patricia and, even if you want to count Steve, who's coach secondary.
Yeah, I'm trying to think of the cornerbacks.
Butler, Malcolm Butler, J.C. Jackson, Kyle Arrington. I mean, they've had all these guys come through and have figured it out. So I'm not totally out on them developing him. Again, I might rather McCollum because they need somebody to play day one. And Woolen's probably not that guy. But I'd be interested to see what they can do with him.
How confident are you in Mike Pellegrino taking Tariq Woolen and turning him into a star? That's what we're debating right now, right? Like that's
sure.
That's the
I will say, because somebody brought it up in the chat.
Right out to Mike Pellegrino. I think he's a good coach.
So he gets compared to Jaquan Williams because so big, right? And like 6'4" corner, like that's not even a thing. He is a much better athlete than Jaquan Williams was. Jaquan Williams was a tight end stopper. Like Jaquan Williams wasn't drafted to play outside corner. He was drafted to cover Travis Kelce and those kind of guys, and it just never developed. They're different prospects. They're very different prospects.
Fair enough. All right, let's grade some mock drafts. We
said we were going to do that. We're like an hour in.
Yeah, we're gonna do it. We got a few minutes here. I'm gonna pull it up and we're gonna get to grading. All right, so a lot of mock drafts that look very similar. So we'll start.
You guys have been listening to us.
Yeah, I can see that. So a lot of Dax Hill here, Alex. Right, a lot of Dax Hill with the first pick. Leo Chenal.
Well, you got to click on one so we can go through.
I know. I'm getting to the bottom. Okay. All right. So here we go. Here's our first one. What do we think here? A little double dip there at linebacker on day 2. Christian Harris. I think Damone Clark at this point, not a day 2 guy with this spinal injury and stuff like that. He's kind of like this year's Cam McGrone, right? Maybe see you in the 5th and 6th round now because of that. But overall, what do you think here about this one?
Yeah, Slade Bold in the 4th. It's too early. I think Alec Lindstrom in the 5th. He doesn't really have positional versatility. He's just a center, and he still have David Andrews locked up. Jeremiah Moon late is nifty. I don't hate that.
Yeah, that's probably the best pick in this mock, honestly.
I like the last pick. Everything in the middle is rubbing me all the wrong ways, but you know what? They need
effort in the middle.
At the end of the day, they need 3 to 4 instant playmakers. I think they got 3, so there's that.
Okay. All right. That's a positive spin on this one. All right.
I'm going to try to be nice.
Here we go. Here's another one. Another Dax Hill at the top of the draft, right? We got Dax Hill.
We got or?
I don't know. A little trade down, right? We got to trade down, grabbing Dax Hill here. Let's see if I can do. No, I can't. That's the biggest.
I'll try to find it on my phone. Just keep going.
It's a screenshot of a cell phone, right? So we got. I'll read it out. It's Dax Hill, Leo Chenal, John Mechie, Zion McCollum, Luke Fortner, Neil Farrell Jr., Kyron Williams, Velus Jones, Jason Poe, who's gotten a ton of love lately. Really good athlete. Really probably the best pulling guard in the entire draft that maybe they can get in the 5th or 6th round. I really like Jason Poe a lot. So a couple of picks here I like on day 3. Obviously, everybody knows my love for Velus Jones. Jason Poe I really like as in their scheme as a power pulling guard. What do you think about Kyron Williams? I know the 40 times is going to scare some teams off, but that kind of feels like where the Patriots pounce, right? Oh, yeah, you're so worried about the 4-6. We don't give a crap, right? We're going to take him anyway because he's a good football player.
Right.
One of the best pass protectors that I can think of coming out of the draft at running back in a long time, like really a difference maker, impact pass protector, and a really good receiver as well. We haven't talked a ton about backs. We haven't talked a ton about Kyron Williams. I think he's an interesting player for them.
Yeah, he is. I just, he's Tyler Beatty, but slower. And they're probably going to go in the same range, right? So,
I just think that he blocks better already than pretty much anybody in this draft, right? So that's a big difference.
When I look at this class, though, I mean, you picked up future assets. Daxton Hill, day 1. Leo Chenal, day 1. Zion McCollum, probably contributing by the end of year 1. John Mechie, probably contributing by the end of year 1. It's a decent class. It's a decent class.
Yeah. Okay, so this mock draft definitely is a listener of the program because we got pretty much every single guy drafted here is somebody that we've talked to once or twice. A lot of trade downs though for Dax Hill. It definitely feels we've talked about all these guys, right? Josh Jobe there, Chris Paul, Ellis, Haskins. So I think just, oh man, if you just want to draft a guy at running back that is not sexy, I don't even know if he's good. He just gets the yards, right? He somehow just gets the yards. That's Hassan Haskins for you. But a lot of people, I would say, Alex, at the top of these drafts, not comfortable with Dax Hill at 21. Like anybody that's trying to target Dax Hill is trying to trade out of that pick and get him in the later 20s or early 30s.
Yeah, but again, you get, two immediate playmakers right away. Josh Jobe's an interesting one because he was supposed to be a first-round pick coming into this season, had an inconsistent year, ended early with a foot injury. Yeah. He does have some potential like day one outside corner, though. If he's healthy coming into camp, that's probably a little low for him, but I don't think it's unrealistic. Like if he's going and meeting with these teams and his foot's still a lingering issue, you might be able to get him there. I really like that pick. I like the Haskins pick.
Yeah.
I even like, you know what? I like the trade, not because I like Andy Isabella. I don't think he's going to give you anything, but you basically moved back 6 spots to get a future 5th.
Everybody just trying to ship N'Keal Harry out of town. I'm not saying they shouldn't try to ship N'Keal Harry out of town, but if I had a nickel for every single time somebody said, when are they trading N'Keal Harry, I'd be a rich man.
But at the same time, I think trading N'Keal Harry for Andy Isabella doesn't solve the problem you think it solves.
Yeah, that's fair enough.
If you don't want N'Keal Harry here, there's no reason to be in a rush to get Andy Isabella.
Yeah, everybody knows like my feelings on all these other guys like Daxton Hill, Chenal, Mechie. Fine, like take any of those guys, right? Hassan Haskins at running back, you've got me on him, Alex. He's a really interesting player. Like, I just think that's the type of guy that they need in that early down back role behind Ramondre Stevenson for the next 3 or 4 years. Just going to get all the yards that are there. And they tend to put together good offensive line play. If Hassan Haskins has the volume one year, like he could be a 1,000-yard rusher in the Patriots system, not because he's some dynamic ball carrier, but just because he's really nifty between the tackles and kind of understands how to feed off of his blocks, when to cut, when to go downhill, when to do different things with his processing. He's a really interesting player.
I think the thing with Hassan Haskins is he's good field vision, like you said, and he's big. So he's a hard guy to bring down. He's normally going to get at the very least, fall forward after contact, right? People are going to flip out because this player is a stigma on him. He's the best parts of Sony Michel. He's a very similar player to Sony Michel. The difference is you're taking him in the 4th or 5th round, not the 1st.
Right. He's the Sony Michel they ended up getting, not the Sony Michel they thought they were getting. Yeah.
Draft, like where he was taken aside, Sony Michel ended up being like a pretty good running back, right?
Yeah.
It's as much as you can ask for. I think Hassan Haskins could give him that. Again, you're taking him significantly later, but if they end up with Haskins on day 3, it's a good pick. You can't hate that pick.
Okay, so Alex, you'll love this mock draft because Matt Ariza there at the bottom.
I get sent so many mocks like this. He's not making it to every Patriots fan just puts Matt Ariza in at 210.
Yeah, last pick of the draft.
Wind up the draft nice. Barth is going to love it. I'll slip him in there. He's not going to be there at 210. Some people think he's going to go in the 50s. Lance Zierlein on NFL.com says he could go in the 50s. I don't think he's going that high. He's not going to be there at 210. I think he's going somewhere between 100 and 150, maybe 170. He's not going to be there in the 6th round. He might not be there in the 5th round. You can't just slide Ariza in like that and say, look at me, I drafted him, I get the credit. No, you got to take him. The PFF simulator just dropped certain players. We could have drafted Zaven Collins, who was a 1st-round pick. It let us draft him in the 6th round in almost every draft we did last year. You got to, at a certain point, the simulator's not going to respect you, but you got to respect it. You got to respect the process. He's not.
The simulator doesn't respect.
I love it. He's not going 210. I will say though,
they don't like punters, Alex. They're just saying the punters are going.
They don't like punters.
That's it.
And I don't mean to rip this person's mock draft. Trust me, you're not the only one who's taken Matt Ariza at 210. It's all over the place.
Yeah, this is they got some good players here. Go ahead.
Zonovan Knight. Great pick. Great pick. Potential pass catching back. One of the best kick returners in the country last year. Experienced player. Oh, I love that pick. It's a little bit of a reach. Some people think he might go undrafted. Some people think you can get him in the 7th round. if they take him at 200 and he's going to come in and return kicks right away and then be the third down back in a year or two, that could be a sneaky good pick. I love that pick.
I can't remember exactly. I think he's bigger, but maybe like a little bit of a redo on JJ Taylor there, right? Like kind of a similar type of player. Returns kicks, pass catching back. I could see that. All right. Cordell Flood, another one in this draft. We talked a lot about the other guys, Hill. I don't want people to sleep on Mumma. Like, I feel like we talk a lot about Chenal. We talk about a lot, Nakobe Dean, Troy Anderson. Mumma's sort of getting lost a little bit in that.
Doesn't he feel like one of those guys that like they're not going to have a shot because he's going to go between 21 and 54?
Yeah, that's fair. He's a good player. All right. Cordell Flood gotten a lot of. I saw some people talking about him on Twitter today for the Patriots. Alex and I not quite as high on him as everybody else, but all of a sudden Cordell Flood to the Patriots is like a hot pick in mock drafts that I've seen.
Yeah, I don't see it. Like, I get it. He's versatile, but I watch too many SEC games, and look, I haven't watched a ton of the tape, but I just feel like in the fall watching LSU, every time LSU got beat deep, it was him. It was like
he played a nickel role for them last year. He played a lot in the slot, which
I just have bad, like his name is associated in my mind with just him getting beat.
Yeah, fair enough. I think playing in the slot in the SEC is like maybe one of the most challenging things to do in all college football.
It's not going to get any easier in the NFL.
I hear you, but just that role, like you're going up against these receivers in the SEC that are all fast, that are all polished slot receivers. It's tough sledding in there. He does flash some good ball skills. He does have some length. I'm not as in love with him either, as I've seen a lot of attention on Cordell Flood for the Patriots as of late. Here's this one. We got Troy Anderson now in this one. Sean Ryan, my guy. Marquand McCall on day 3. Another Jason Poe shout out there in the 6th round. Yeah. I don't mind this mock. I think that this is pretty solid. I'm not so sure about some of these trades. Gets a little wonky here with the trades. A lot of trades. We got 3 trades and 2 picks, right?
Well, they made at least 3 trades. I think before last year, they made at least 3 trades in like 4 or 5 straight years. So it's not unrealistic. I mean, I can't see what some of them are just to see how realistic they are. But man,
so the first one is 23, and I don't even know what that pick is. 3rd round pick. Oh, the Patriots Patriots are getting 23 and 87 for 21. I don't know how that happened, but that's what's up here right now.
No,
weird trade.
So they're getting paid to move back?
Yes.
Yeah. No, that's right. No, that's right. Yeah. They're getting paid
no. The trade itself makes sense. Arizona's at 23. Okay. So Arizona.
Remember they were like 8-0, 9-0 to start the season.
Right. My fault. Brain fart. Arizona trades up from 23. They give the Patriots a 3rd round pick for moving up 2 spots. The only way that this happens to me, I don't even know if Arizona is interested in a wide receiver, but the only way that this happens to me is if there's an all-out bidding war for Chris Olave, Jameson Williams, or somebody like that between Dallas and Green Bay and Kansas City and Arizona, right? Like that's the way that something like this happens.
Yeah, which could happen. Like I think so. I look at this one. I think Troy Anderson at 63 is probably a little bit. I don't know that he's there. I feel like they can get him at 54. I don't think he makes it past 60. But if they walk away with this class, Daxton Hill, potential franchise starting safety, Troy Anderson, one of the best linebackers in this draft, and adding speed to defense. We like John Mechie. They get their starting guard in Sean Ryan. We like McCollum. Long-term outside cornerback.
I think they could have a starting guard in Jason Poe, too. I think he might start down the road as well.
Marquand, Zonovan Knight. I might learn how to do cartwheels if they come away with this class. That would be an excellent draft.
Good job, Alex Kloss. Good job. All right. Here's another one. Another player that I don't think we've talked quite enough about. Kellen Diesch here from Arizona State. I think he's his own blocker, right? I think he belongs in his own system. Put him with San Francisco, put him with the Rams, now with the Miami Dolphins. Let him get out and scoop block and make blocks moving laterally side to side. But a really, really good athlete. Like if you want to make the Patriots projection, you're probably thinking he's like Nate Solder, right? Like that's sort of where you're going with it. But yeah, I think that this mock is pretty much a lot of the guys that we saw. A big trade out of the first round all the way. Looks, I don't even know what they did with. Oh, so they traded 21 to Dallas, and they get 58, another third rounder, and another fourth rounder. So they maximized the day 2, early day 3 picks instead of getting like another first or something like that.
Yeah, at 20, like it's one thing if they're picking like, what was the year that they took Duggar? They were picking like 27, 28, something like that.
Yeah, they picked right. They moved back. I think they were picking 23. They moved back to 37, but. They also did this with Jamie Collins, right?
Yeah,
they moved back with Jamie Collins' year.
If you're going to move out of the first round this year, you're almost in the top 20. I want future assets. I don't know that you can get a future first, but like, if so, this right, what is that? 21. So Dallas is like, I want
58. They get 88, and they get 120.
So I would almost instead of that fourth, because I also think this is an underpay. Generally, teams overpay to move up, right?
Yeah,
that fourth should be a future second. And now we're talking, because you got 3 top 100 to move out of it should take 3 top 100 picks to move out of the first round entirely. Now, moving back from 21 to 24 with Dallas, that's actually a trade I've kind of looked at a little bit and I don't hate. But if Dallas is going to keep 24 and you're going to move, should be second, third, future second. Like that's how I'm looking to do that deal. But yeah, again, a lot of players we like here. Marcus Jones-Zion, McCollum, you get your slot corner and outside corner for the future. Bo Melton, Marquand McCall. Again, Ariza's a little low. I'm not that big on Deesh. I just think he's maxed out. He's an older, right? He's like 24, 25.
Yeah, he is who he is. He's just not a people mover. They tend to like that. They tend to like that on the left side, though, right? Like left tackle. Yeah, but they're not as interested in the bulldozers. Right tackles where they want the converted. They want
potential franchise guys at left tackle. They want that skill set, but they want potential franchise guys. Deesh, like he reminds me of Adrian Waddle, who's a good player. Like you need that guy. It's helpful to have a tackle who can play both positions. But I look at that draft there, like they still don't have their tackle of the future. You're still going into next year needing to replace Isaiah Wynn.
Okay, so this one's got Chris Olave somehow falling to the Patriots at 21. I think any draft with Chris Olave at the top we're good with. A lot of like Dax Hill, Christian Harris, Dax Hill, Leo Chenal. That's kind of the combination.
Dax Hill, John Mechie.
Yeah, that's kind of the combinations we're seeing here. Quay Walker, kind of like Chad Mumma. Are we kind of losing the conversation here with Quay Walker? Although I will say, Ian Rappaport, I think, tweeted this out when he shared some of his top 30 visits for this week or last week, and other guys have said it. Quay Walker might be like a first-round pick when it's all said and done, or at least in somewhere in the 30s. I've made at least, I don't know if you kind of see the Jamie Collins comparisons there a little bit. That could be a Jamie Collins-esque situation. If the Patriots were to trade out at 21 and move back into the early second round, that could be more for Quay Walker now than somebody like Dax Hill.
So I've said this before. I think all things considered, the talent, the skill set, the position, the positional value, the way the position stacked, the other players at the position throughout the draft, pound for pound, I think Quay Walker is the best pick they could make in this draft if they can get him at 50.
He's a good player.
54. And I don't know that they can. Yeah. But for the other linebackers in the class, for what they need at linebacker, for what he brings to the table, all of that, he would be a great pick. I love these first 3 picks. Really, I do. I'm trying to tell if they added any future assets here. I can't, but
nope. All moving around.
Hill, Walker, Mathis, your defense is better. Those are 3 day 1 starters. I like Jalen Amore Davis too as a potential upside corner on the outside. And then we've talked about.
Would much rather Amore Davis than Cordell Flood. Would much rather.
Agree. Big agree. Yeah. And then get a little fancy at the end, a little styling at the end with Connor Hayward and Jordan Stout. Yeah. Some good polls, but players that the Patriots would like. This person has some research. I think some research into this mock. This was well done.
Did their homework. Yeah, this is a good one. I agree. Jalen Amore Davis, long, athletic, had kind of a bumpy road at Alabama, but
he only started 1 season.
Yeah, but somebody that I think is really, really high upside. The one thing that I would say about this draft, and Macro mentioned the age of the draft prospects, a lot of older guys, because of COVID because it's just a wonky 3 or 4 year run for a lot of these dudes. Like a lot of guys haven't played a lot of football. A lot of guys are older. Like it's just a weird, everybody's got something, right? Like everybody's either 25-year-old rookie. Andrew Booth Jr. has only played 15 games in college. Like there's always a little bit of something like that with a lot of these guys in this class. It just seems like everybody's got just something going on with how many years they played or whatever. Jalen Almore Davis is another one of those guys. I really like him. All right, one more. We got. Okay, Jermaine Johnson's not making it there. I just don't think he's making it to 21. We talked about Danny Gray, Tariq Woolen, Troy Anderson. This is a good mock if it happens. I don't think it happens. I think it's a great mock if it happens. And here's the one I wanted to pull up. Kaiir Elam, Troy Anderson, Dobb.
So finally, somebody knows where to take Matt Araiza realistically.
There you go, Alex. Well, they got.
We've got JT Woods. We got JT Woods. We got LeBrian Ray. We've got Treston Ebner. I might have put this one together.
Yeah. Let me see. Who is this? At Duggar's World has been listening to Alex. That's very clear.
Clearly.
Yes.
Although I've kind of cooled off on Romeo Dubs, but I mean, I love Troy Anderson. Araiza obviously took him in the right spot. Melton's a good pick. We talked about a lot of safeties before. We didn't talk about JT Woods.
Yeah.
Talk about a guy who just knows how to get himself to the football. That's what JT Woods does. I'd love to see him again a year with McCourty. LeBrian Ray is a fit. One of those, 3-4 defensive end against the run, tackle against the pass. I've talked about how much. Did you watch Treston Ebner yet? I really like Treston Ebner.
Yeah, he's on my list. I'm getting through the rest of the running backs now. He's on my list.
Okay. I would be very happy with this. I would enjoy this.
Yeah. So I think the end equation.
Low key. Hang on, go up. I just noticed it at the bottom. Go back to that class. Low key, N'Keal Harry to the Packers actually makes some sense.
Yeah, for 258 for that Treston Ebner pick. So basically, you're trading Treston Ebner for N'Keal Harry for Treston Ebner.
Easy. You're probably gonna need a pick swap, but last year, when there were those reports that N'Keal was going to get traded before the draft, the Packers were one of the teams involved.
Yeah.
And they lost a couple of big body guys.
Yeah.
Now, obviously, N'Keal's not replacing Devontae Adams or even Marquez Valdez-Scantling, but they need size. Nice. Low, he stuck it in there at the bottom, but I want to point that out. Nice.
Green Bay and Arizona seem like the two teams that have shown the most interest in N'Keal Harry.
In Washington.
Another simulator. This is not PFF. I don't know if people can see this one. It's a screenshot again, but I don't know. Okay.
What happened at the top? It starts at the 66.
I think it's Mechie. I don't know. All right. Well, let's end it there.
Evan, it's 2 pictures.
I don't even know. This is a different mock draft.
He traded down. Oh, that's a different mock draft? Okay.
This one's not happening. Like Travis Jones at 42. Yeah, we're gonna end it there. We're gonna end it on a high note.
End on a good one. No. We gotta end on a good one.
All right. Here's another one.
Oh, okay.
This is okay. All right. Now we're getting crazy. We're trading for Deebo Samuel. No, not. You can't end on that one. Interesting though. So the general consensus here, I guess we can end it this way. The general consensus here, Alex, is that everybody wants a DB. Like I saw a few linebackers, right? There's a few linebackers as the top pick, right? I think we saw a couple Leo Chenal, Nakobe Deans. Everybody's taking a DB. Yeah, everybody's taking Dax Hill. We saw a couple Kaiir Elams. Not a whole defensive back is where the fans want to go, at least based off of this exercise.
Yeah.
So
get ready for a tackle.
Yeah. I've been thinking about this, kind of coming to a conclusion here with this draft. I think the most interesting thing for the Patriots, and this kind of segues into our Thursday mock draft show, what are they trying to accomplish at the top of the draft? Are they looking at multi-year needs, right? Like, are they looking at tackle? Are they looking at spots like that? Or are they literally just looking for a player to make an immediate day one impact at a position of need, right? Corner, linebacker, like those positions, wide receiver potentially. if they go tackle, then they're more interested in 2023 than they are in 2022 at the top of the draft, at least, right? That's the general consensus there. So that's going to be an interesting way to look at it and see where the Patriots are going with this. And Alex and I will take another stab on Thursday ourselves. Patriots mock draft show probably around the same time as tonight, 8 o'clock, and do it a little bit later this week. But we'll have mock draft 5.0. Might be finally the day that Alex gets to draft Matt Ariza. So you definitely want to come back for that. And next week, we'll do a first round mock 1 through 32. And then we'll do another Patriots final mock draft next week before the draft. And then during the draft, it's really quickly, we'll have recap shows after every single round the next day. So Thursday night, we'll have one Friday morning and so on and so forth. But for the short term, Thursday, what you need to know, same time, same place, a mock draft 5.0. And this was fun. I'm glad we did this.
Yeah.
This was
somebody, I wish I could give credit. Somebody DM'd me on Twitter with the idea for the show.
Yes.
Whoever that was, that this might be a yearly thing. This was actually fun. So thank you for that idea.
Yes, absolutely. So Alex and I will be back on Thursday. Like I said, mock draft 5.0 right here on Patriots Press Pass and Patriots Beat. Thank you so much to everybody that sent in their mock drafts. We tried to get to as many as we could. People that asked the questions in the chat, we appreciate you too. And we'll see everybody on Thursday night. Until next time, signing off for Alex Barth, I'm Evan Lazar. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one.